All right, you guys ready to get started today? Are you having fun? Everybody have a good lunch? All right, see some smiles, some nods. That's good. That's good. My name is Jeff Walter. As you might imagine, I am not from this part of the world. But thank you for inviting me here and allowing me to be here. I'm the CEO of Latitude Learning. We're an LMS company. If you have a partner training program, you need an LMS, talk to me over there. And now my sales and marketing people will be very happy and I can go on talking about fun stuff. So today we're going to talk about turning your training program into a strategic asset. Sounds very dry and a little dry, but hopefully we'll have some fun doing it. So first off, I've been learning development for a while, and this is our mantra. Knowledge is good, and its corollary, more knowledge is better. And it's an important mantra. It's how we all got into this thing, but that's not how executives think. And I've been executive for a while, so I kind of get that part too. So you got to understand the executive mindset if you want to turn your training program into a strategic asset. And executives, we only do one thing. We allocate budget. And when we do that well, our staff lets us come here and do fun things like this. When we don't do it well, they don't get it. But there's really only two types of things you allocate budget to. Things that are cost of doing business and things that are strategic investments. And the cost of doing business are things like accounting, things like compliance, customer call centers. These are not the things that drive your business forward. The strategic investments are the things that drive your business forward. And oh, by the way, I meant to mention there's a QR code in the lower left. A lot of this information available online, so you can enjoy that. But sales, a lot of money goes into sales and marketing. A lot of money goes into product development. Some of it goes into production and plant and equipment. And so what executives do is they give big piles of money to things that are strategic investments, and they give itty bitty piles of money to things that are a cost of doing business. So the goal here is to take our training programs, which most executives think of as a cost of doing business, and transform them into something that's a strategic investment. And that's, if there's one thing you take away from this, and we'll cover a lot of stuff, but just keep this in mind, because I've been fortunate enough over the 20 years I've been running the company. We've had a lot of clients with a lot of different types of training programs. And the ones that do this, budget just falls from the sky. The ones that are over here, they get breadcrumbs. So if you want to have fun and you want to get some budget, you want to be on this side, not be perceived this way. So the presentation, I'm going to go through my little framework that I've put together, and then I'll try and keep that brief because I want to get to the case studies where you kind of see it in action and how good things happen. Does that sound good? Good. Because I could spend an hour or two talking about the framework, and I see a lot of people that don't want me to do that. Okay, we'll get to the case studies. Case studies, everybody case studies? Oh yeah, heads nodding. Okay, boom. Let's move it on. So first, we're just going to cover this. Surefire Training Impact, the framework. You got to begin with the end in mind. We'll talk more about that. Then who needs to be trained? What do they need to know and do? Navigating the challenges, charting the course, making it happen. Like I said, QR code, don't need to take notes. All right. So Nietzsche said, if you know your why, you can survive anyhow. Well, so really, beginning with the destination line is really understanding what benefits, what are you trying to get from a business perspective, not just train bodies, not just check marks, but what are you trying to do? You're trying to increase sales, you're trying to increase retention, you're trying to reduce warranty costs. What exactly are you trying to do? And I would say spend a little time on this because it's not necessarily obvious. Mostly we focus on the act of the input, which is the training, not the output, which is the result. And so I always like to start with begin with the destination in mind. What are you trying to do? Okay, then the next obvious thing is who needs to be trained, right? In order to accomplish that, who needs to be trained? You guys all know how to do that, so that's easy. Okay, then you get into what do they need to know, but also what do they need to do? And a lot of times we as professionals, we focus on the know part and not so much on the do part, the skill sets that they need to develop. And the analogy I always use between the two is your driver's license. So to get your driver's license, you have to pass your written test And then you have to take the road test. The written test is the knowing how to drive. The road test is actually having the skill to drive. And you don't get your license until you can demonstrate that skill. All right, moving on. Like I said, we're gonna move through this quick, and we'll get to the fun part. You guys are great, by the way. All right, navigating challenges. These are a bunch of challenges. They can be, we focus on partner training. So these are some very typical partner training challenges. The challenges will be unique to your training program, which you're trying to accomplish. But we see when we're trying to train partners are things like they're scattered all over the world. They have different needs. They don't work for you, so you can't fire them if they don't take the training. Fun things like that. And language barriers and all that kind of, like I said, moving through it quickly. Here we go. Okay, this is where the rubber starts to meet the road. So over the 20 years, we've kind of boiled it down to 5 different types of training programs. And they kind of have accelerated levels of return on investment, right? So it kind of starts here at stage 1 with your self-directed training program. I'm sorry I'm standing in your way the whole time. I can go back up here, but I like being down here. So stage 1 is when the learner it's self-directed. They just, pick the courses they want, take the courses they want. It's a very nice way to get started. It has some value, but quite frankly, you don't get a lot of bang for the buck there. And then you got your stage 2 where you want to make sure that your learning community has a certain level of knowledge. A lot of our onboarding programs out there look like this. We want to make sure that those people that come on board have some base level of knowledge before they are allowed to interact with customers, say in a call center. A great example of onboarding. But then we go from the knowledge to skill. They got to be able to do something, right? And that's where we as an industry start to kind of fall off a little. These have a much higher ROI, much higher return. Then you get into performance at the individual level and at the group level. And those are the 5 types of training programs that I've seen over the years. You can kind of throw them into one of these 5 categories. And if you want to look at the impact of the program, it's very much geared towards where they are in this curve. Okay, just a couple more bits of framework, then we'll get into the other stuff. So what do we mean by these different stages? And this is a real eye chart kind of thing here. So I'm not going to go through it all because that would take an hour. But what we have here are basically the best practices associated with each of the stages. So if you go over here, you see things like having comprehensive resources, blended learning, suggested training, learner feedback, and measuring your success via enrollments, right? More enrollments is better. As we move to stage 2, you're creating certifications, you're doing assessments to make sure they have the knowledge, and you're measuring your success based on certifications. As we go over to 3, you start building skill profiles. A person in this type of role needs to have these types of skills. You give them the ability to do skills assessments, to practice regularly, to have mentorship and coaching, because how many of us learn to drive without somebody in the car telling us that the pedal on the right is the one to press to go forward and the one on the left is the one to stop. So you need the mentorship and coaching, and you measure success via your skills assessment and skill levels. And then here you start bringing in your key performance indicators and ways to improve it. You set clear performance goals. You measure success via the individual impact. And then here you get into that partner level. You're doing this at the group level. Now it's not at the individual level, but you're doing this at the group level. Make sense to everybody? All right, moving forward. And then make it happen. Most of these are our work streams in our methodology. You got to organize your people, your content, your experience. You got to create the content, manage your users, give them access to stuff, manage the enrollments, track progress. That stuff we kind of all know and we do a pretty good job at. But then getting down to these strategic work streams, we tend to struggle a little as an industry on. In terms of what rewards and recognitions, usually the reward and recognition of most employee training is you get to keep your job. Sometimes it's something you have to do before you get the next promotion. When you're dealing with partner training, this takes on a whole new meaning. What are you going to do to promote it? Because the folks don't work for you. But rewards and recognition, how are you going to measure success? And then how are you going to improve the training program? All right. So I want to share this little bit of knowledge. The most viral training metric I've ever seen, and it goes through the organization, is the performance of trained people versus untrained people. And it's amazing to me how many people do not figure that out. And you get basically something like this. Our trained sales staff sells twice as many sprockets as our untrained staff. And it goes viral through the organization. And when it goes viral through the organization, that's when you know you're in that strategic asset where you're getting that return on investment. And if you can't say this, you need something simple like that. Now, I'm a stats guy, so I understand that's not maybe the best stat in the world from a statistical standpoint, but it is very viral. So I would suggest that, just sharing a little of that. And then again, stats guy, all different types of statistical analysis out there. Here's a simple one, requires no statistical understanding of anything. It's a simplified discriminant analysis where you pick a metric, like say sales, oops, I jumped ahead. I pressed the wrong button. You take something like sales volume, you divide your people up into 4 buckets from low performers to high performers, quartiles. You throw your people into the buckets. So now you've got 4 equal segmentations. Jane goes in the high performer bucket. And then you take some type of training intervention, like level 1 sales certification, and you see participation across the different buckets. And if you see something like this, this training is a high predictor of performance. Now that's not causality. If you want to do causality, you got to get into Bayesian analysis. It's really annoying and nobody does it. I worked with a professor at the University of Michigan on that at the Connecticut high schools to see what drove standardized test scores. It's a lot of fun when you get the results. It's really, really boring doing the stats. But this is something I've seen used, and it's nice. It kind of gives you some insight as to what's predictive, right? So, like I said, prediction is not causation. Multilinear regression analysis, it's also not causation, but this can give you some good insights. All right, and then you have something like complex sales course. You see something like this, and it doesn't mean it's a bad course. It just means it's not predictive of high performance. That's it for the stats. We're moving on. All right. Any questions on that, or should we get into the case studies? Told you, wasn't going to spend a lot of time on that. All right, moving on. So Chrysler was a client of ours for, what year is it? 2025? 20 years. 20 years. And they began with the destination in mind. They wanted to increase sales, and they wanted to decrease their warranty costs. And one of the things they do is that an individual, and there's about 250,000 dealer personnel across the world. And one of the things they do is they calculate this fixed first visit rate for every technician. Because if you're paying for warranty work, you want to make sure it gets done right the first time. Because if it's not, the customer's going to bring it back in and you're going to have to pay somebody else to do it again. So for them, increasing the fixed first visit rate was key. All right, so over 200,000 staff worldwide, primarily salespeople and technicians, although there's remote. And things they need to know: product knowledge, sales skills, marketing alignment, incentives and rewards. They had a pretty robust incentive program. They spend about $100 million a year on incentives, and they graduate those incentives as you get your training. So you might earn $100 for something, but then if you're level 1 certified, it'd be $200. If you're level 2 certified, it'd be $500, and so on and so forth. So they baked their training levels into their incentive program. So which really incentivizes people, because if I'm going to sell that Jeep to you and I'm going to get a $500 commission, I'd rather get a $1,000 commission. So I have to be certified to do that. And then same thing on the technicians: product knowledge, sales skills. They have an extensive set of training institutes around the globe where people can go in and actually change tires and fix transmissions and all that good stuff. And then navigating challenges, and kind of hit these a little earlier. They have partners, their dealers are distributed all over the world, multiple languages. They have multiple field support networks. There's a separate field support network for sales, service, and parts. So you've got 3 field organizations that have to be coordinated. You have learners with multiple roles working out of multiple locations. They might be working at Westside dealership as a service tech during the week, and then their brother-in-law owns the East Side dealership, and they go over there and help out as a salesperson on the weekend. So multiple roles, multiple dealerships, a lot of different needs, cultural differences, the whole gamut, a lot of stuff. So now we get to what they do about it. Well, in their training program, what you see here highlighted are the best practices that they employed. And what's grayed out are the ones they have not employed. And so this is probably my best example of one of my clients where they took their training program and really turned it into a strategic asset. So if you look at the stage one, they really nailed this. They really don't get learner feedback. They really don't put too much stock in that. And they don't measure success via enrollments. Over here in the stage two in the knowledge acquisition, they don't grab manager feedback much, and they don't put a lot of, they don't measure success by their certifications. We go over here to stage three. They have skill profiles for everybody. They set partner skill level objectives, that a dealer has to have so many certified technicians, so many certified salespeople. Really don't focus on the mentoring and coaching at this level. They have that at the owner level. They incentivize the skill development, and then they really incorporate and integrate it into their training program, KPIs, not only at the individual level, but at the group level. So for example, like I said before, you have individual sales records of who sold what. You have individual fixed versus visit scores at the technician level, but then they also have customer satisfaction scores at the dealer level. And so they've incorporated those all into their program, and they really measure their success based on individual performance and the difference between trained versus untrained people. So again, kind of an eye chart, but the impression here is they really kind of go all the way up to that level 5. And they have that kind of impact where they can tell you a trained sales consultant sells so many more vehicles than an untrained sales consultant. A trained service technician, their fixed versus visit score is so many points higher than an untrained. And everybody in the organization knows that they can that they translate that into, oh, that's worth millions of dollars. And when we do it at scale, that's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And as a result of that, the budgets that have come down over the years have been pretty extraordinary and allowed us and them to do some pretty amazing things. It's really it's really been a lot of fun. I really enjoyed this. So, and I think, again, I'd say this is probably my best definition of as a strategic asset. I don't know if you all remember, but back in 2009, Chrysler went bankrupt, and Fiat bought them. They created Fiat Chrysler, and then Peugeot bought them, and now they're Stellantis. Okay. Well, back in 2009, they were scaling down their dealer network. They were closing a bunch of dealerships as they went through bankruptcy. One of the metrics that they used in deciding which dealerships to close was the level of certified staff at each dealership. So if your C-level suite going through a corporate bankruptcy is taking your training program metrics in to determine which dealerships to close and which ones to keep open, that is the definition of a strategic asset. So that's them in a nutshell. Any thoughts, questions? Move on to Polaris. We're doing good? Oh, we're doing pretty good. Okay. I have a tendency to talk a lot. I'm on time. It's crazy. All right, moving over to Polaris. This is me. I was snowmobiling a couple of weeks ago. Minus 25. It was awesome. It's me on my Polaris sled. Great sled, by the way, if you're doing trail riding. Recommended highly. They also own Indian right down over by the hotel there. The Indian motorcycles. So, Polaris, everybody knows Polaris for the snowmobiles. They also own Indian and a couple of other on-road brands. They own a number of off-road brands. They also own 3 boat brands. So they own a lot of stuff. They measured success, and with their destination in mind is they maintain a dealer net promoter score for their training program. So they don't go to that depth that Chrysler does. And I'm comparing and contrasting the two because they have very similar challenges. but you can see how it differs depending on what you want to do. So to them, it's all about dealer net promoter score. And same thing, training salespeople and technicians, same thing, training them the product knowledge and the marketing skills, kind of very similar set of knowledges. They have a little bit different challenge in that their brands are very different. So some dealers sell off-road, some sell on-road. And so there's some fun technical things there, but pretty much very similar type of training challenge. So I kept me up there because, whatever. Very similar set of challenges. We support them globally on all their brands. And so the Indian dealer here is getting their training off of our platform as well as the one back in Ann Arbor. Very different training program, right? They, kind of mostly stage one, mostly stage two, very knowledge-based program, but they also built a pretty comprehensive set of skills and profiles and partner skill objectives. So to become a trained partner, you have to have so many people at such and such a skill level. They do their skill assessments. They have regular practice. They also, it's not, I should have, this guy's supposed to be highlighted. They incentivize skill development by what they reward on warranty rate. So if you're not, they have bronze, silver, gold dealers based on training. And if you're down untrained, you pay for all your training and you get the fixed warranty rate for a thing. So you go to bronze, cost of training drops in half, and you get more money for all the warranty work you do. And then you silver, drops in half again, rates go up, get the gold, training is free, more money for warranty work. So they are incentivizing at the dealer level, not at the individual level. And then in terms of measuring their performance, they're doing it again at the partner level. So kind of a different program, lots of different, they really don't bring in the KPIs and that, but they do that net promoter score at the dealer level. And it's been quite successful. They've been a client for, 13, 14 years. Our clients tend to hang out with us for a while because we do what we say. But yeah, so that's them in a nutshell. I thought that was pretty interesting. Any thoughts, questions? Moving on. Okay. Guys having fun yet? Good. All right, so kind of to bring this all back around, you got this methodology of begin with the end in mind, figure out who needs to be trained, figure out what they need to know and do, figure out what specific challenges you're facing, and then chart the course. Charting the course is what level of program, what type of program, stage 1 through 5, are you looking to put in place? And the more you go down that line, the bigger the return will be, the more your training program will be viewed as a strategic asset. And then the making it happen, we're all pretty good at most of that, in terms of delivering the courses and tracking training and all that, especially if you have, any one of the couple of hundred LMSs out there, we as an industry do a pretty good job at that. That's what we do. But then but those last three, the strategic ones, about measuring success, putting an improvement plan in place, and doing the rewards and recognition, that's where we tend to kind of fall off the grid a little. But that's how you make it happen. And then if you do that, your training becomes a strategic asset. You get to fly away in this really cool thing. And that is all I have. Thank you. Oh, thank you. Oh, my ego feels great. This QR code goes to the Surefire Training Impact on our website. Has most of that content that was up there. This is just for our general thing. Happy to answer any questions anybody might have. Thoughts, comments, concerns? Yes.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
So how in our industry most people are really obsessed with engagement in their training. Is that something that you find matters with your clients, or you just try to stay very objective with your outcomes?
That's a good question. So engagement is important. One of the analogies I use is boot camp for military. So rural recruit, he's very engaged, or she's very engaged. But it's not as important as can they fight when they're done with the training? Can they fight as a unit? Can they be an effective unit? So engagement, I think engagement is important. The learner feedback is important. But what's more important is, can they do the thing that you're training them to do? And sometimes that means doing things they don't like to do. Because learning is always growth, right? And growth is always painful. So the engagement's important, but I think a lot of times we as an industry are focused a little bit more on, a little too much, let's say, on the learner and what they want and feel and their engagement, and not on what outcome we're trying to accomplish. And that's not to say that that's not important, right? Like if it went too far the other way, then nobody volunteers for the military, right? But what?
I said it's more like a means to an end, the engagement, rather than the end.
Exactly. And that's where I think we kind of, and it goes back to that first mindset. We as learning and development professionals, we believe knowledge is good and more knowledge is better. And so we think everybody thinks like that. And, they don't. But, and you got to get back to that executive mindset of, no, I'm spending this money to accomplish a goal. What's the goal? So that's a good question, though. Good question. Any other questions, thoughts, comments, concerns? All right, look at that. I am 3 minutes early. I'm going to give you back 3 minutes of your day. And if anybody wants to talk, I'm up here. My booth's over there. Thank you very much. You've been a lovely audience, and thank you for having me here in London. Another one. Yes. And you guys are still smiling after listening to that. That's awesome.